shapeless, like water. You gotta put the whole hip into it and snap it. Ultimately, martial art means honestly expressing yourself.
Dragon whip his tail.
The war cry was unmistakable. It needed no translation. His fists and feet did most of the talking. And his face became recognized around the world. The greatest martial artist, Bruce Lee.
When you hear the word martial arts, you think Bruce Lee. And that's not just in America, that's globally. People think Bruce Lee because he embodied the martial spirit, the true spirit of the martial arts.
You could feel the room come alive when Bruce bounded in. Bruce never walked into a room. He entered a room.
Bruce was irritating, fun, stimulating, exciting, charismatic, cocky, genius.
He was good looking, he was muscular, he was fast. He's extremely articulate and extremely high IQ. If there's any irony in all of this about the greatest, is that he demythologized particular martial arts.
There would not be Ninja Turtles, there would not be Karate Kids, there would not be Chuck Norris, there would not be Steven Seagal, there would not be Jackie Chan, there would not be Jean-Claude Van Damme had it not been for Bruce Lee. He was the one who didn't just, you know, open the door. He created the portal through which all these people passed.
On screen, Bruce Lee was larger than life. In person, he was just 5'7", 140 pounds, and nearsighted. Despite his size, his impact was huge. Today, thousands of martial artists around the world study the legendary Bruce Lee style. The camera loved Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee loved being in front of the camera, so much so that he used the first generation of home video to shoot these black and white tapes of his backyard training sessions. They show off the speed, power, and agility that made him a supreme martial artist.
Beautiful.
But Bruce Lee's true greatness sprang from his ability to do as much with his head and heart as he did with his fists.
Okay, now let's run it back and see what happens.
Bruce was definitely a fighter, but he was underneath a very deep person rooted in philosophies that went back thousands of years. He was a very old soul come to visit us for a short time.
San Francisco, 1940. It was the year of the dragon. In a Chinatown hospital on November 27th, a healthy baby boy was born. His father was a Chinese opera star touring the U.S. His mother named the child Li Junfang, but a nurse gave him the name the entire world would know, Bruce. The family returned to their home in Hong Kong when Bruce was 3 months old. The third of 5 children, Bruce grew up in a theatrical family, so it's not surprising that he was a natural as a child actor. Bruce Lee appeared in 20 Chinese movies before he turned 18. His screen name was Li Su Lung, which translated means the little dragon. The Bruce Lee style was apparent at an early age.
What are you doing here?
But the little dragon was more of a street fighter than a movie star.
Growing up on the streets of Hong Kong is what sent Bruce to get an education in martial arts.
Bruce studied a style of martial art called Wing Chun. The arduous training practiced against a wooden dummy taught the basics. Bruce would drill until his arms were bruised.
And he really poured himself into that. And his very early disciplined training took place in those 5 years between the ages of 13 and 18, when he studied and got the root of his martial art training.
Bruce Lee had just one real martial arts teacher, Yip Man. The most important thing he taught Bruce was the traditional code of secrecy, to never teach the martial arts to non-Chinese.
And that was the way it was for thousands of years. You know, he did not teach the Guaylo, you know, the foreign devil, our self-defense techniques.
But there was a side to Bruce that would lead him into trouble. He was more interested in throwing punches than hitting the books.
Bruce, I think he would describe himself as grown-up street fighting. I think it was not until he came to the United States that he actually became serious about his studying. He was not a real good and serious student in school in Hong Kong.
Bruce was always one to never say no to a fight. If someone asked him to fight, you didn't have to ask him twice.
Bruce was a natural competitor who never did anything part way. When he took up dance, it wasn't enough to be a good dancer. Bruce wanted to be the best. His competitive nature paid off. Bruce was the Hong Kong Cha-Cha champion of 1958. These never-before-seen home movies reveal a rarely seen side of the Little Dragon, Bruce Lee, the dancer. The rhythm and fluidity of dance complemented the balance and footwork of his martial arts. They fit together like yin and yang.
I think it is quite natural for him to have combined the characteristics of being a streetwise young punk that he would have called himself, I think, and combining that with being the coolest cha-cha dancer around, because those things kind of went together. It's almost really like it was in West Side Story.
But Bruce Lee's brawling ways still got him into trouble. When it looked like he might end up in jail, his parents decided Bruce should go to America. His father sent him on his way with enough money to get started, but it was up to Bruce to make it on his own.
When he came to the United States, he had $100 in his pocket, and he looked around at everything and said, "Now what?"
Once in America, Bruce Lee was alone, poised on the brink of a transformation. He was headed for a showdown that could have been scripted for one of his movies. The Western concept of martial arts in the early 60s was limited mostly to karate and judo, the fighting techniques servicemen brought home with them. Bruce Lee changed all that. The Chinese tradition of keeping martial arts secret was about to be smashed. In the next 10 years, the Little Dragon would do more to popularize martial arts than any other person alive. But before he could do that, Bruce Lee changed himself.
There occurred a pivotal point in Bruce's life between his street fighting days in Hong Kong and his scholastic days at the University of Washington. Somehow, between the years 1958 and 1960, a metamorphosis took place. And probably a lot of it had to do with the fact that Bruce Lee was on his own.
In 1959, Bruce Lee went to stay with a friend of the family in Seattle, Washington. He lived by himself above the restaurant where he worked. Bruce wasn't cut out to be a waiter, so he turned to what he knew best and began to teach Kung Fu. It marked the deliverance of Bruce Lee's martial arts to the West. Bruce used his given name and called his school the Jun Fan Kung Fu Institute. While the site of Bruce's first school in Seattle's Chinatown is now a restaurant, the memories of the early days are still fresh. Bruce Lee saw no race or creed and continued to teach whomever he pleased. One of the first students was Taki Kimura,